Get things kicked off with Coach Novak. And Stefan, go ahead and get it started.
Hey Doug, how's it going?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. Yeah, just looking at this schedule ahead, obviously you guys have Florida tomorrow, a number 19 team in the nation. But even after that, I mean, it's tough stretch to close out the year. And you guys are in the tournament right now in a lot of the projections. I mean, what's this next stretch mean for you guys? How big is this next stretch for the rest of your season?
Well, I'll just give you some typical coach speak as I usually do. It's this next one. And then after that, I'll think about the next one and the next one. And obviously our staff is working ahead so that I don't have to, so I can stay in the moment and stay where my feet are. Again, just like always trying to keep our bodies fresh, our minds fresh, and stay in the present.
Is that something you guys, talk about at all after everything you've overcome? The fact that you are, at least in the current projections, a team that, could be playing in the NCAA tournament next month?
Not when I'm around. It's not something I ever bring up, and I don't bring up winning or I don't bring up losing. I just bring up how we want to play for this particular practice and this particular game. And then everything else just seems to take care of itself. If I thought it'd be extra motivation and we were going to try harder, or we were going to really focus in now because we're almost in the tournament, or where people are talking about, if I thought that was going to help, I would talk about it ad nauseum every day. We would be bringing it up. I just don't think it helps at all. I just think it's an extra burden. It's an expectation. It's going to take us away from the present moment, and that's all I care about. And I think it's so hard. I think it's so hard with these phones. I think it's so hard with social media. I think it's so hard to stay focused on anything for everybody. That part of my job is to eliminate noise and help us see clearly at the present time.
Andy, go ahead.
Hey, Doug, you talk about obviously the coach speech, not looking too far ahead. I mean, was there a certain point in your career that you had to learn that maybe the hard way of like, hey, we don't want to focus on postseason possibilities because you might have talked about it a long time ago and it didn't work out well?
No, but I think as an athlete, I used to think like that. And I started tennis really late, and I probably was in the 18s, my first tournament I ever played. And they'd have these seating boards, and you'd look at it, and I'd only look at my first match because I thought I could get beat by everybody in the tournament. And so I never looked at what that second match was. I never looked at the third. Someone say, you have a good draw. And I say, I have no idea what the draw is. I just know that I can lose to that first one. And then you started getting a little bit better, and you're the seed. And so I don't know. Somewhere along the line, someone instilled that into me. And it's never really left. When I left from being an athlete to being a coach, is that I'm probably a little bit insecure, and I think we can lose to anybody at any point in time. And I know we can lose practices. So and it's not that hard for me to stay focused, but I know it is hard for this generation. I think it's way harder than what it was 10 years ago and 15 years ago. There's a lot more distractions out there for everybody.
Right. And Florida looked real good against Tennessee and Georgia. What kind of stood out to you from those two games, I guess, in particular? And then I guess the matchup for you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, I think they're really talented at that guard spots. I mean, they have 3 or 4 of them that come in, and they have a great hesitation to the game. They can get to the rim. They can score at different levels, and they just put so much stress on your defense. And then they're really good on the ball defenders, so they disrupt as well. Now, Auburn had a great game with them, but Auburn has, kind of matches up well with them guard athletically. The Tennessee's bigger, maybe a little bit slower, and Florida's guards really took control of that, and they scored a lot in transition. I think it was 20 points to 21 points in transition, and Tennessee had 0. So their athleticism is as good as there is in our league, and those guards can really control the game.
Robbie, go ahead.
Coach, you talked about their personnel and their style of play a little bit, but they've kind of mirrored a lot of the same things that y'all have gone through. They have an interim head coach. One of their better players transferred in the middle of the season. Just on the surface, I know you've been focused on your team, but how do you feel like they've been able to win these ball games and beat some really good teams the last few weeks and get into position of competing in the top half of the league?
Yeah, I think they have really good players, and they're utilizing those players the right way, and then they seem to have really good chemistry. Again, nobody will ever know unless you're inside their program, but I think that coaching staff is doing a really nice job, running the program, and they're a top level team in our league.
Y'all had y'all's first game without Danae, and knowing that you weren't going to have Danae for the rest of the season the other night. How did you feel like now that you've kind of watched the film and gone back, how did you feel like Charlie and Raven did in that situation, kind of splitting time there in the post?
I thought they did really well, and they did what they can do, and they put their body, in positions where they, made some tough shot, had to make some tough shots over them, or just influenced a couple things defensively, grabbed a couple rebounds that maybe they haven't been grabbing before. But no, I thought they both did a really nice job, and helped us along the way, because that is a big loss with Danae. She's different. She's just has a different fast muscle twitch fiber about her, a different motor. And I thought both Charlie and Raven for that Auburn game did a very nice job kind of stabilizing our team when we needed it.
John, go ahead.
Hey, Doug. Anastasia was left off the Naismith Women's College Basketball Player of the Year midseason team. Based on what you've seen from her, do you think she was kind of snubbed off that list?
Yes. I don't know who else is on that list, but yeah, I wouldn't leave her off any list. I mean, she has meant so much to us down the stretch, and I've said this, a couple times, and it's not just about her and her points. I mean, she's making everybody else better. It's her passing, and then she goes in there and grabs 9 rebounds. Charlie and Raven were fighting, and they're playing a little bit of beach volleyball, and she just come out of nowhere and this power jump and grab some rebounds, throw her hips into somebody as a 5'6" guard. And she did that because we needed it. So she'll do whatever your team needs. If it's a bounce pass across the court for a wide open 3 for Ree Thompson, it's that. If it's dribbling underneath the basket and shooting a little jump hook over her left shoulder, she'll give you one of those. I mean, she's really a complete basketball player, and her defense and her communication has really gone up another level, and nobody ever pays attention to that. But those are the things that help you win. Everybody's looking at the points and the great passing, and she's on another level with that. But it's her whole game that's coming up, along with her leadership, and she's a pretty confident young woman right now.
Stefan, go ahead.
Doug, I'm kind of just curious with you, this being your first year coaching, the SEC Women's Basketball League. I mean, how much have players like Maya Taylor, or maybe some of the veteran players you've had, kind of helped you when you guys are going through film or scouting the opponent you guys are taking on?
Quite a bit. And, it started with a whisper. We're explaining a player what we've seen on film. And then Maya's whispering to either myself or one of the coaches. She's played against her for 3 years. And I said, stop whispering, tell the team, like, better than we do, because you've gone against her. What do you see? And I do think that's a sign of maturity with a team, when they feel like they can have a platform to speak, and especially concerning basketball or other issues too. But we encourage players like Maya, if you've gone up against somebody, tell us what you know, and then we'll compare and contrast it with what we've seen on film, or what that coach is doing with them this year. So yeah, she's been invaluable with her knowledge and wisdom.
You talked about your tennis days. Do you keep up with tennis at all? Are you like a Federer guy, a Nadal guy? Do you have a favorite?
I am so far behind the times. I do like Federer. I just kind of like how he acts, and he just, I don't know how the body has stayed together for so long, because at some point in time, the average age, you had to retire at about 30. And so maybe the weight training, maybe the conditioning, but those strokes are so efficient right now. Like he looks like a Brady type guy that could go until in his 40s. Now Nadal with the big windup, I think that arm's going to fall off every time he swings. I don't know how he's done it. And he still keeps on coming back. So I actually haven't followed it that closely, but I know the top players, and then when my daughter was playing in college, I followed it a little bit on the college circuit.
You think if you had played at the right time, maybe you'd still be playing these days?
I took it as far as I could.
Robbie, go ahead.
Coach, very rarely do we hear about, knee surgeries being unsuccessful. It's always a successful surgery. And Danae mentioned that the other day, but after a few days, how's everything going with her, and what's kind of the timetable you think for her recovery?
Oh, it's too early to tell on that. I mean, everybody was happy with the surgery. They're happy with the recovery that they're doing right now. So, I mean, thumbs up, looks good. But again, that's an injury that takes a while, but it's also an injury that, you're lucky to have it today as opposed to 10, 15 years ago, even, just because the technology and the knowledge and the way they recover is so much better now than what it used to be.
Is she going to be pretty regularly around the team? Is she traveling or anything like that? What's going to be her role now that she's injured?
Yeah, she's still around the team. Obviously, she's doing her rehab, and she didn't travel right away just because that leg was all bound up. So, but yeah, she's going to be a part of everything. And again, she added value on the floor with her heart and hustle and tenacity. That's what she could do as a freshman up to that point when she had her injury. And now she just has to take on another role, and it's going to be more of a mental role and an encouraging role from a sideline. But just because you can't be out there on the floor doesn't mean that you can't add value. And so she has some unique leadership abilities for being so young. And when she talks, other people listen. So it's not always about being a senior and having a voice. She has a voice on this team at a young age. And we want to take advantage, and we want to grow that voice, for years to come.
All right, thanks, everybody.